We all need energy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the most basic thing that connects every living thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
From like the tiniest little bacteria
Yeah.
all the way up to us. We breathe in oxygen, and somehow that simple act, like, powers everything.
Yeah.
It's incredible when you think about it.
It really is. It makes you wonder, though, right?
It really does.
Like, what did life do before there was all this oxygen everywhere?
Yeah, before oxygen was just like hanging around.
Yeah, like in those early days of the Earth, what was going on?
It's a good question, and that's actually exactly what we are diving deep into today. We're going to be talking about life before oxygen.
A world without oxygen. Hard to imagine.
I know, right? You think about those early Earth environments, like, could anything even survive?
Well, you know what? Not only did things survive, but they thrived.
No kidding.
Yeah. We're talking about ancient microorganisms, like the kind that still hang out in places like those deep-sea vents.
Oh, yeah, those crazy hot springs on the ocean floor.
Exactly. It's like a little time capsule down there. Conditions are pretty similar to what the early Earth was like.
And get this, their way of making energy, it's like totally different from how we do it with oxygen.
It really is fascinating stuff.
So that's what we're going to dig into.
Totally different respiration.
Yeah, and we've got this brand new research straight from Goethe University. We're going to break down how these ancient organisms figured out how to make energy, essentially by breathing in carbon dioxide.
It almost sounds impossible.
I know, right? Breathing in CO₂ to make energy. It's wild. And the team behind this research, it's Professor Volker Müller and his crew, researchers like Anuj Kumar and Jennifer Roth. They're really onto something here.
They're pushing the boundaries of what we know about life itself.
And the thing that really blew me away, like, this isn't just ancient history. Understanding how these organisms do their thing, it could actually help us tackle this whole CO₂ emissions problem we've got.
It's like a blast from the past offering solutions for the future.
I know. Talk about a plot twist, right?
It really makes you appreciate how fundamental science, even if it seems like it's about stuff from billions of years ago, can actually be super relevant to our lives today.
So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How does this ancient respiration even work? It's got to be totally different from what we do.
Oh, it is. It is.
Okay, so instead of breathing in oxygen, these microbial trailblazers are taking in carbon dioxide and hydrogen. And what do they breathe out?
Yep, this acetic acid.
Acetic acid.
Yeah, that's the stuff that gives vinegar its,
Pungent smell.
Exactly, that ligonizing.
So they're basically breathing out vinegar. It's wild.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. And the crazy thing is, we already knew about the metabolic pathway.
You mean like the step-by-step chemical process of how they turn CO₂ and hydrogen into acetic acid?
Right, those biochemical steps, they've been mapped out for a while now.
So that part wasn't the mystery.
No, the real head-scratcher was, how did this process actually generate ATP?
ATP, the energy currency of life. Like, how did these ancient microbes power up without oxygen? That's the million-dollar question.
That's the one. It's like having the recipe but no stove.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We knew the ingredients and the steps, but we had no idea how they were actually cooking up the energy.
It's a great analogy. And, this new research, it really seems to have shed light on the inner workings of that ancient stove.
Spill the beans. Tell me more.
Okay, so picture this. There's this protein complex, and it's called the RNF complex.
The RNF complex, got it. What's so special about it?
Well, this complex, it's like a cluster of different proteins all huddled together within the bacterial cell membrane.
So it's like a little team working together on the inside.
Precisely. And as Professor Muller pointed out, it's actually really sensitive. Like, it was only recently that they even managed to isolate it.
I see.
But its job is super important. The RNF complex basically facilitates the transfer of electrons.
So it's like a tiny biological electrical cord.
Yeah, you got it. When that carbon dioxide and hydrogen are reacting to make the acetic acid, electrons have to move from the hydrogen over to the carbon.
Right, that makes sense.
And the RNF complex is like the middleman. It makes sure that handoff of electrons happens smoothly and efficiently.
Like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the electrons moving around, but how does that actually lead to ATP, the cell's energy fuel?
This is where things get even cooler.
Even cooler. Okay. I'm intrigued.
So it turns out that when the cell makes acetic acid, it triggers a pretty clever mechanism involving this RNF complex.
What kind of mechanism?
It actually starts pumping sodium ions out of the bacterial cell.
Out of the cell.
Yeah. And now you got to remember, the cell membrane is like a barrier, right? It's like a dam holding those positively charged sodium ions back.
So you're building up a concentration of sodium ions outside the cell.
Precisely. More sodium ions on the outside than on the inside. And that difference, that's potential energy just waiting to be unleashed, just like water behind a dam.
So you've created this tiny cellular dam with all these sodium ions just itching to get back in. How does the cell use that stored energy to actually make ATP?
Okay, now imagine this. Embedded in the cell membrane, there are these other protein complexes. We can think of them like tiny molecular turbines.
Molecular turbines. I like it.
Yeah, and when certain channels in that membrane open up, it's like opening the floodgates on the dam.
Whoa, here comes the rush.
All those sodium ions, they come rushing back into the cell, and that flow, it spins those molecular turbines.
And the spinning generates
ATP, it's pure genius. The mechanical energy from that spinning is converted into chemical energy in the form of ATP, which is what the cell uses to power up all its activities.
It's like a water wheel powering a mill.
Exactly. It's an elegant, albeit indirect way to convert energy into a usable form for the cell.
It's mind-boggling how they figure this stuff out. So we've got electron transfer, and that powers the pumping of sodium ions, and that creates this like battery with stored energy that then drives these ATP-producing turbines.
It's a beautifully choreographed dance on a molecular scale.
Absolutely. And speaking of choreography, how did the scientists actually unravel all these intricate steps? Cryo-electron microscopy, I think I read that, played a big part.
It was crucial. Cryo-electron microscopy, or cryo-EM, let them actually see the RNF complex in incredible detail.
Like actually see it.
Yeah. Imagine taking the RNF complex and flash freezing it so fast that the water molecules don't even have time to form ice crystals.
It's like a super speed freeze frame.
Exactly. Then they put those frozen complexes under an electron microscope. And because they land in all sorts of random positions, the researchers can get tons of images from all different angles.
Oh, I get it. Like taking a three-dimensional photo by capturing all the different sides.
Precisely. And then they use computer magic to combine all those 2D images into one highly detailed 3D model of the RNF complex.
That's amazing.
It is. And that gave them a much clearer picture of how it's all put together, especially those parts that are involved in moving electrons around.
So they could see how all the pieces fit together.
Yeah, and what they learned is that the complex isn't just static, it's actually pretty dynamic. All the little components are constantly moving and shifting.
That makes sense, like to make space for the electrons to pass through.
Precisely. And those little movements let the electron carriers bridge the gaps and pass their electron cargo down the line.
It's like a miniature, super sophisticated machine, isn't it?
It really is.
But there was still one big question, right? Like, how does the flow of electrons actually make those sodium ions get pumped out? It's like, where's the link?
That's where this really fascinating cluster of iron and sulfur atoms comes into play. This was like a missing puzzle piece.
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that. Fill me in.
Okay, so picture this. Right smack dab in the middle of the RNF complex, embedded within the cell membrane, there's this cluster of iron and sulfur atoms.
Okay, got it. Iron and sulfur hanging out in the middle.
Right. Now, what they found is that when this cluster receives an electron, it becomes negatively charged.
Like a tiny little magnet.
Exactly. And that negative charge attracts positively charged sodium ions from inside the cell.
So the sodium ions are drawn to this little magnet in the middle.
Yep. And here's where the magic happens. This attraction, it triggers a shift in the shape of the proteins around the cluster. It's like a tiny rocker switch.
A rocker switch, I like it.
Yeah, so as those sodium ions get pulled in, they cause the proteins to shift just enough to create a little opening.
An opening.
To the outside of the cell. So those sodium ions get attracted in, and then thanks to that rocker switch motion, they're pushed right back out of the cell.
It's so simple, yet so brilliant.
It's a beautifully coordinated molecular dance. And, you know, Jennifer Roth, she actually provided even more proof for this mechanism.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that. How did she do that?
Well, she made some very specific changes to the genes that make the RNF proteins.
So, like, tweaking the blueprints of the machine itself.
Precisely. And those modifications, they actually disrupted the rocker switch mechanism.
Ah, so they could see if that actually affected the pumping of the sodium ions.
Exactly. And it did. When the rocker switch was broken, the pumping stopped.
That's pretty solid proof that their model is correct.
It is. This whole discovery really shows how powerful it can be when different fields of science work together.
It's like a scientific dream team, right?
Totally. From visualizing the complex with cryo-EM to simulating its behavior with computers and then proving it all with genetic modifications.
It's really incredible work. And the thing that I find most fascinating about all this is that these microorganisms, they're consuming CO2. Like that's their food source.
It's pretty amazing, right? They're like tiny little carbon capture machines.
Which, when you think about our climate change problems, is pretty huge.
It really opens up some interesting possibilities. The researchers are even suggesting that we could use these microbes in bioreactors.
Bioreactors, so like big tanks of these microbes.
Yeah, and we could feed them the CO2 from industrial waste streams.
So those smokestacks that are pumping out CO2, they could actually be feeding these microbes who are turning it into something useful.
Exactly. It could be a game changer for how we deal with carbon emissions.
So not only is this RNF complex discovery a major scientific breakthrough, but it also has these incredible real-world implications. What other cool applications could come out of this research?
Well, Professor Mueller also talked about the possibility of optimizing this CO2 fixation process.
Optimizing it.
To do what? To produce other high-value chemicals, not just acetic acid. Once we really understand how this whole system works, we might be able to tweak it to make all sorts of useful products.
That's really exciting. And I remember you mentioned something about potential applications for new drugs.
Oh, yeah, that's a really cool angle. Some of those nasty bacteria that cause diseases, they actually use respiratory enzymes that are pretty similar to the RNF complex.
Really?
Yeah, so by studying this ancient energy production system, we could potentially learn how to design drugs that specifically target those enzymes in the harmful bacteria.
It's like a sneak attack on the bacteria's energy supply.
Exactly. Cut off their power and they can't function. And the beauty of this approach is that it could lead to more effective antibiotics with fewer side effects.
That would be huge, especially with all the antibiotic resistance problems we are facing.
It's a big deal.
It's really incredible to think about the journey we've taken today, from the most basic needs of life to this super intricate molecular machinery.
It's been quite the deep dive.
We've gone from the oxygen-deprived early Earth to these amazing microorganisms that figured out how to breathe in CO2 and use it to power their lives.
And who knew they'd be holding the potential key to solving some of our biggest modern problems?
It's a testament to the ingenuity of life, isn't it? Like if these organisms could figure out how to thrive in a world so different from ours, what other incredible biological secrets are still out there waiting to be discovered?
It makes you wonder, what else is hiding in those extreme environments? Or even beyond Earth?
It really does make you realize that we're just scratching the surface of what's possible in biology.
There's a whole universe of discoveries still waiting to be made.
And who knows, maybe some of those discoveries will hold the answers to some of our most pressing challenges.
That's what makes science so exciting.
Absolutely. It's a never-ending quest for knowledge.
And the best part is, we never know what we're going to find.
That's the beauty of it.
I can't wait to see what we uncover next.
Me too, me too. Well, folks, that's a wrap for our deep dive today. Be sure to check back next week for another fascinating exploration of the world around us. Until then, keep those brains buzzing and stay curious.
See you next time.